ever had this experience? When I was younger and I did something, I made a decision that my parents kind of didn't agree with, didn't think was the best decision, and I sort of came up with different excuses. They would say this line, and maybe you've heard it before: just because everybody else is doing it doesn't make it right. You know, did your parents ever say any of that sort of stuff? Man, my dad would give it loads of variations. He'd say, oh yeah, just because everybody's walking off a cliff, would you walk off a cliff? And he's like, oh yeah, hey, I know what, let's jump in front of a bus. He would just like, man, anything he can think of, you know? Hey, climb a tree and fall out of it. I was like, I get the point, Dad, you know? So I don't know if you ever had any sort of experiences like that. And we know that's kind of true. You know, we do know that's true. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you should do it. But we live in a culture and we live in a society which actually is wired to do that to us. You know, I don't know if you've got a smartphone. You might have a smartphone. Most people do nowadays. Can you cast your mind back to when you first had your first smartphone? You probably just turned it on. You didn't have to enter a little PIN number. You remember? And then it moved from being able to put a PIN number in to being able to scan your thumbprint, didn't it? In my old phone, which didn't have to do all that kind of stuff, you think, well, that's cool, you know, the thumbprint thing. I mean, nowadays you just look at it and your phone like knows it's you, right? It's like, hey, sexy, how are you? Yeah, you know, I mean, it just like wakes up and it sees you, doesn't it, you know? Maybe your phone doesn't say that. No, what about a TV? Do you remember those TVs? Those were like as deep as they were wide, you know? And when you put it in your house, like if you put it on a flat wall, it like stuck out like 2 meters, you know what I mean? It was like, come on, this is like massive TV. And so they always went in a corner somewhere because that was the best place to put these things, you know, these ginormous things. And we had to buy this stand for the TV that was like as heavy as the TV. You remember these like chunky things, you know, and we had one for years and years and years and until it actually just stopped working. So I'm a bit of a Luddite, so I would keep it forever. But TVs have gone flatter and crisper and sharper and thinner. And oh my gosh, like you go to these new ones and you're like, wow, I can see the pores on their skin, you know? I mean, it's just like, wow, look at that sweat bead, you know? It's so like crisp. And you go to, you know, somewhere like Costco or something and there's a TV like 10 feet by 10 feet, you know, I'm exaggerating, but they're big, you know? I mean, they're like huge, aren't they, you know? And you think, man, my TV is just so bad, you know, my TV, you know, my phone is so out of date. My TV is so out of date. And we go into these places and all of these environments, and what they do is they're really good at helping us because they convince us that our wants are actually needs. This is how marketing works. This is how businesses work, if you like. And it's so much better than the one you've got. And it's so much nicer. And you know what? It's going to make your life easier. You know, this smartphone will make your life better. It's actually going to improve your life. I mean, you can do your diary and your email and your scheduling, and you can even like change your clothes with it. I mean, it does everything, right? I mean, you know, they're just going to make your life so easy. And you know what? They want to help us, and they want to make it so easy for us, you know, and it's only going to cost you £35 a month, interest-free, for 4 years. You know, they want to help us. You know, they do these things to just help us, don't they? You know, they're out there to make our lives better, and come on, you deserve it. You really do deserve it. Don't you deserve some good news and some happiness? And this device will do it for you. It will make everything better. You know, we look around at other people and we feel left out somehow. We feel like we want what what they have. And you know what, this is you might not even be a follower of Jesus, and that's totally cool, because you're gonna be surprised when I tell you there's a story about this exact same thing that happens in the Bible. You see, this whole idea is not even a new thing. This has been going on for ages. And there were these people, they were called the Israelites. They were tribes, and they were nomadic people, and they were a bit different than other people groups, other tribes at the time, and they didn't have the same structure. And their leader was a guy named Samuel, and he was a prophet. And what the prophet did was spoke to God on behalf of the people, and the people could speak to Samuel, and Samuel could speak to God, and God would speak to Samuel, and that was how they had a different system, a totally different system. And then what happens is, they get together, and they go to Samuel, and they say to Samuel, you can read about it in 1 Samuel chapter 8, and it's like a history book. In the Bible, there's lots and lots of books, 66 different books, and in the earlier books, there's like history books. And Samuel's one of the like history books, if you like. And it tells us about the story of the Israelites and the kings. And Samuel, they say to Samuel, they say this to him. They say, basically, you're getting old, okay? Very polite. They say, you're getting really old. And they also say, your kids are duds. So they're kind of saying, like, I don't know who's going to lead when you're dead and gone. So they sort of complain, and they go to Samuel, and they say this thing, and they ask him about what's going on. And they look at the other nations, and they see that the other nations and other tribes and other groups of people operate themselves differently, and they have this thing called a king. And they decide that they want a king as well. And that's what they tell Samuel. You're getting old. Your sons are duds. Give us a king. We want a king as well. Okay? We want to be like the other nations. And when Samuel hears this, he's a bit upset. Understandably, he's kind of like, I don't know if this is the best thing for you. I feel a bit, okay, but I'll speak to God about it. So he speaks to God, and he's like, man, what should we do? And then this is what God says to him. He says, go ahead and do what they want. Do what they're asking you. Let them have their way. Just let them have it. Go for it. But you got to give them a warning. You got to give them the small print. Tell them what's going on. Give them the T's and C's, terms and conditions. And so Samuel carries on. And so this is what he says to him. He says, okay, this is what a king is going to do. He's going to take your sons, and he's going to make them into soldiers. He's going to take them, and they're going to work fields. They're going to work the farms. They're going to plow. They're going to harvest. He's going to take others to build things and make things for his use. He's going to take your daughters to become beauticians, cooks, and waitresses. I know we couldn't write something like now because girls can do anything, okay? But at that time, that was the way the culture was. Your daughters can only be cooks, beauticians, and waitresses. Anyway, moving on. He carries on. So basically, and then he says he's going to also, next grid, he's going to take your best fields, your orchards, and your vineyards. He's going to give them to his special friends. He's going to tax your harvest and your vintage to support his bureaucracy. Your best workers and your best animals, he's going to take those for his own use. He's going to tax your flocks, and you'll end up no better than slaves. Okay, Samuel is telling them straight. You're going to end up like a slave. He's telling them straight. It's going to be bad. It's going to be awful, actually. It's not cool. Okay? It's not really the best. I think God's got something better for you. God's got a better for you. And do you know what their reply was? Their response to this is, they're just like, nah, give us a king anyway. And it says that they want the king because we want to be like everybody else. I'm so left out. People have been comparing themselves to others for thousands of years. We've been doing it forever, before smartphones and before TVs, and they feel left out, It's nothing new. Sometimes we feel left out, don't we, We get trapped by comparison. We compare other people's lives, compare other people's anything, everything, their social media feeds, the photographs that they've got, their partners, their children, their houses, their cars. Oh, wow, look at all their cleaning products. Come on, you can compare anything nowadays. Anything. Their holiday photos. Wow, look what they had for breakfast. All I had was porridge. Man, they had some exotic crazy thing I never even heard of, and it looks really nice. How come my photographs of my food just look like prison slop, It's we compare ourselves to everything nowadays, everything. And our children and our young people are in an environment where the pressure is on, really heavy, 24/7. Pressure's on. We live in this society, and we feel like we must do certain things. We must go on a holiday abroad every year. We must have the newest phones. We must have the new TVs. We must. And what happens when we start thinking like we must, we actually become a slave to something. So something has become a king or a ruler in our life that effectively we become a slave to. Because it determines and it dictates what we do. And we follow. Because we're letting it boss us around. You know, we've elevated something in our life that makes demands that we can't keep. You know, it's like that. Okay, it was fine to have that payment for the phone and that payment for the TV and that payment for the couch and that payment for the car. And, you know, for a while, like, we might think that we're on top of everything. But what happens is it becomes to be the boss of your life. It demands and controls what you're doing practically with your finances, if you like. It takes over. And at first you don't feel the pinch, but then circumstances like where you're living in economically at the moment, what did make sense at the time doesn't seem to make quite as much sense because it's making a demand on you. And you've become the slave to it, you see? You know, and we can all have something in our life that becomes a king. Anything can become a ruler in your life that you become a slave to. I don't know what it is for you, but it can be anything. It doesn't have to be material things. You know, it can be anything. And at the moment, we're doing this series called Cost of Living. And at the moment in the UK, you know, we're in a cost of living crisis, they're calling it. Christopher Baker kicked off the theme last week. If you missed it, you can catch it online. But we want to be really practical in this series. And it's about, like, not just telling people about their finances, but actually living. How can we live free lives, free from anxiety, which what Christopher looked at last week, free from pressure, free from stress. And but when things get really tight or heavy or hard, it takes all of our energy, doesn't it? You know, and actually, when that happens, and if you're in a position where all of a sudden, which seemed fine at first, it's okay, give us a king, it's fine for, I know, I mean, someday they'll take the kids as soldiers, someday, I mean, they'll be building fields, someday they'll be doing this, someday the daughters will be doing this, and someday, you know, it's kind of all fine, but when all of a sudden, like, a war starts, and it's your son that gets taken to go fight somebody else's battle, it becomes really personal. And what worked at first, but when all of a sudden something gets tough, becomes harder to manage. It doesn't feel so great to have a king in your life and have these things in your life when all of a sudden they control your life. And as a local church, we want to help. So this series is totally practical. We're going down a really practical route for this series. I don't think you should live life being anxious. I don't think you should live life being under so much pressure. I don't think God wants that for you. We want to help. In this series, I know it's cost of living crisis. It's less about money and more about living, as I've said, because I want to see you thrive. We want to see one another thrive, don't we? We want to see us live in abundance. And you might not believe in Jesus yet, and you might have lots of questions about Jesus, and that's really good. You know, ask the questions. That's really good. And one of the things Jesus said about himself when he was here, and one of his friends wrote this down. He was an eyewitness who lived at the same time, and this eyewitness who lived at the same time wrote down what Jesus said about himself. And what Jesus said about himself was this: I have come that you might have life, like real life, full life, abundant life, life to the full. And I don't know your idea of God, what you think God is like, but he didn't come like a king to make you a slave. He came to give you life. Life. To enjoy life. To live life. To be free. He came to give you life. I have come that you might have life. And some people think, and maybe you think this as well, maybe you think that God is just like this cosmic killjoy in the sky. You know, killjoy in the sky. No, it doesn't quite work. Anyway, sorry. The killjoy in the sky. Yeah, this big killjoy, this cosmic killjoy. And some people think God is like this big cosmic killjoy, just loads of rules. And maybe you've thought that. And you wouldn't believe in a God as a cosmic killjoy. Neither would I. Good on you. Good on you for not believing in God if you think he's just a cosmic killjoy. Because if that's what God was like, tell you what, I would join you in a heartbeat. But the God I serve isn't like that. The God I serve isn't someone who's a killjoy. The God I serve is someone who is a life giver. I have come to give you life. I have come to set you free. I haven't come to make you a slave and crush you. I've come to liberate you. So maybe if you're exploring faith and you're wondering about what Jesus and what God is like, maybe look again. Because he's not a killjoy. He's not a cosmic killjoy. Nobody wants to follow a dictator. Do you? I'm sure you wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it, And God didn't want his people to have a king either. He had something else in mind for them. He had a better plan for them. He had something better in mind, but he let them choose what they chose. He let them choose it anyway. But his heart was for something different. His heart was for actually that not to happen. But they wanted it, and so he let them choose it. Doesn't sound like a dictator to me to let people make their own decisions, even when you feel like that decision isn't the best decision. And God is for you. God wants the best for you. He still let them choose it. And when we fall into this trap of a have now, pay later scam, it becomes this ruler in our life. And when we reach the end of our tether, which can happen sometimes, maybe you're not there, that's okay, we feel like we're always struggling to make ends meet. And that's not a good way to live. And when the costs go up, like they are at the moment, fuel, electricity, we all know it, whether you can afford it or not. We all are experiencing the increase in costs. And the pinch is especially tight when the costs go up, isn't it? That's when we actually feel it. And society, culture at large, tempts us to not only feel like we can have what we want because we deserve it, it also tempts you to spend all that you've got every month, to spend all your income every month. This is the way society works. And it encourages you to spend more than what you make per month. That's how it works. Just put it on the credit card. Just put it on the overdraft. Just churn your loan. Just refinance your loan. Just what they do is they sort of encourage you to live beyond your means. And if you don't do it, then you're not doing what everyone else is doing, and you're not looking like, everybody else. And the thing is, that's not a good place to live. That's a cycle that we should all break. It's not a good place for any of us to live in. And we need to get rid of that kind of king in our life. Don't we need that? Get rid of that dictator. Get rid of that ruler in our life. To break free from that kind of thinking. So we're going to shift the tracks a little bit, go into something super practical. And we say, well, how do we get some practical ways that we can begin to think differently and begin to get rid of these dictators in our life? And one of the things that we need to start doing, all of us can start doing, maybe you've already done this, is learn the difference between what a want is and what a need is. Now, a need is critical to life. There's things that we do need that are critical to life. And a want is usually about your quality of life. So a need is critical to living. A want is something is your quality of living. Okay? A need is for you to have clothing. Thank you for being dressed this morning. I really appreciate it. A need is for you to have clothing. A want is for you to have the latest fashions. Okay? A need is for you to eat. A want is for you to always have steak. I don't know. Yeah? We have to learn what a need is and what a want is. We then have to learn, second thing that's really good to learn, is get a handle on what exactly is going in and out of your accounts. So learn what a want and need is, and learn what's going in and out of your account. Start taking a record. Really helpful exercise to do. You'll find out how many times your wife goes to Costa Coffee. It's a really helpful exercise. Find out what's going in and out every month. Now, we are going to be running, later on in April, we're running the CAP money course. Super practical way for you to help you get a handle on some of this stuff. We'll talk about it a bit more in a minute. And the third thing you need to learn is to create margin in your life. To live free is to have margin. to have breathing space. Now, ask yourself these two questions. The first question's easier, okay? How much can you save per month? 2%? 5%? 7%? 10%? How much of your income can you save per month? And if you don't know the answer to that question like that, get yourself on the Cap Money course, because then you'll have the exercise and the tools to figure out what's going in and what's going out of your account every month. If you can't answer, how much can I save per month? Now the next question, I'm sorry, this is a tougher question. How much can you give away per month? Spare change, whatever's left over at the end? 2%? 5%? 10%? 15%? 20%? How much margin is in your life? Because having margin in your life doesn't just mean I can not spend all that I have and I can have savings. Margin also means I can be generous to others. And I think all of us, everybody, whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, at the end of the day, ultimately, we all want to be generous people. It's a beautiful thing about the human nature to care for others and be moved by other people. And we want to be, generous people. Surely we do, And so I'm thinking, well, okay, how do we create margin? Now, this is going to be super practical, this next bit for you. But the first thing to help you to start creating margin in your life and to live free, stop paying for wants. We have to stop paying for wants. Stop being conned by the people that tell you you have to have this thing for your life to be better. We have to learn to stop paying for wants. It takes discipline and it takes practice. Is there something in your life that you're considering buying that you don't actually need? Then that's a want. Okay? So, it will affect your quality of life. I get that. Because that's what a want does. A want changes your quality of life. A need is critical to living, critical to life. So maybe a good way to start building a habit of creating margin so you live free is to stop buying wants. When you're scrolling through your phone or scrolling through and you see this item and it's like, just click. It's so easy to buy things that we just click, 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 and Amazon has got it on my front door the next morning. It's like so quick. We have to learn to get out of that habit. They want to make it easy for you. Okay? So we have to learn not to fall into that trap. And the other thing we can do is to find substitutes. This is going to be like really, really practical, this next bit, okay? So I have got some shopping. I've got some identical shopping here. Some cornflakes, woohoo! Some bread. These are the most popular brands on the high street. Nothing wrong with these brands, of course. A tin of tomatoes and a tin of beans. So just some really... I laid it out. It's Instagrammable. There you go. It's like a nice little pose there. So here we go. Yeah. So a little thing. So these cornflakes here, how much does a box of cornflakes cost? What do we think? Somebody shout out a number for me. Close. Lower. Pardon? $2.35. $2.25. Very good. Yeah, you got a box of cornflakes. Loaf of bread. What do we think on this loaf of bread? £4.20. Anything else? 150, yes, 140. Well done, awesome. What do you think about this can of tomatoes? Now, these aren't the top brands. Okay, these are middle of the road items. Okay, 59. A pound. Who said a pound? Well done, Yvette. You nailed it. A pound. Right, Heinz baked beans. What, exactly. Well done. 140. Okay, so there's this little selection of items, basic items. Now, the same supermarket, what we got to learn to do is you have to learn to, if you want to create margin, you have to find ways to stop buying wants and start controlling what you spend. And you also can find substitutes. Now these two go head to head. Now, what do we think this box of cornflakes? It's a smaller box. It's more eco-friendly actually as well. It's a smaller box. It's the same volume, 500 grams. What do we think? A pound? We got a pound. Anybody? Close. 63p. 63p for a box of cornflakes. Oh, and by the way, it's smaller, so it's less waste, and this has half the amount of sugar, a third the amount of salt, and when you compare the vitamins on the back, this has a higher percentage of vitamins than the Kellogg's cornflakes ones. Now, I'm just telling you, sometimes we make assumptions because we judge things by the cover. Now, this looks cheap and cruddy, and I mean, come on, this looks so much nicer. It's bigger as well. And you know, of course, they make it bigger because they want you to think it's bigger, and bigger is better, right? I'm American. I know how that works, right? Everything, make it bigger. That's brilliant. Yes. You know? So it's worth thinking about. So we got some bread. Plain a basic medium sliced, same size, weight, etc. bread. What do we think this bread costs? I got to look at my notes because I wrote it down. I don't know offhand. This one was 39. Who's the 39? 39p for a loaf of bread. Man, this was £1.40. This is 39. This is £1 and a penny difference in price. Okay? Now, your kids will never know the difference. Toast it and put some butter on it and jam. Come on, they'll never know. You know? Just slowly change items on them without them realizing. Now we've got here some beans. Now, supermarkets actually have two options of beans. This can of beans here was, what do we guess? I need to get my eyes checked, you know. I'm like, I need to increase in my. I need to type these notes bigger. That's what I need. I should have written it with a Sharpie on the back. That's what I should have done. So, what do we think these tins of beans cost? Pardon? 16. You're going for the next one's down. Sorry. So there's two options within the supermarket. We've got this one here. This is just their sort of their own version, and then they've got like a value version as well. So you know why I can't find it? On the only other piece of paper. Silly me. Right. Okay. So these ones 43p. This one 27p. Now, these have all gone up in price. All of this stuff has gone up in price since the cost of living crisis. So a year ago, these were even less than what they are now. So they might have very well been near 16p. They're 23p at the moment. I mean, £1.13 difference between this one and this one. Now, let me just teach you something about marketing. When you go into a supermarket, you like to do this because it's easier. Because it's so convenient. It's just walk in, you recognize it, you grab what you need, and you go, here's another top tip. This is for free. Don't buy your groceries when you're hungry. Oh my gosh, you'll spend more money, you'll grab whatever's convenient, you won't have planned it or thought about it, you'll walk out with loads of stuff, you'll spend loads of money, and all it's going to do is cover you for that next meal because you're going to have to go back the next day. So don't go hungry if you can help it. If you do go in there and you're hungry, just rush in, grab a bag of carrots, and turn around and run out. Eat the carrots in the car, and then go back in. I don't know. So what they do, they put these ones down here. Because really, you know, it's just so inconvenient, you know, and you just have to bend over and take longer in the supermarket, you know. So they don't give it to you where it's easy because the marketing companies want you to have it where it's easy. And this company will have contracts with the supermarkets, and they do not want to be on the bottom. They want to be where you can see it front and center. Because there's a kickback with the company that makes these because they want you to buy them. They don't want you to buy the other ones. Okay, this is it's kind of just sort of revealing how some of this stuff works. Now, if you were to buy, let's just say, if you were to buy one of these per month, yeah, And I don't know, a loaf of bread a week, 4 loaves of bread a week. I don't know how often you use tins of tomatoes. Let's just say one of these a week and one of these a week. That's fairly conservative estimates, so pretty thin. Now, on a year, that's going to cost you 209 pounds per year on basic staples. Now, if we were to swap out a substitute and just get these other ones that we were looking at there a second ago, the substitute costs you 55 pounds per year. The exact same volume of stuff. One of these a month. 4 of these a month. 4 of these a month. Oh, I didn't get out the other 10 of tomatoes, did I? These are 28p. Sorry. Okay. Now, you might think, hang on, eagle-eyed among you are like, those are chopped tomatoes and those are plugged tomatoes. Don't pull a fast one on me, Joel. Right. Okay, now if you buy the value chopped tomatoes, they are 38p. But if you buy the plum tomatoes and chop them yourself, these are 28p. Now, when did you forget how to chop a tomato? Okay? Now, you want to save 10p every time you buy tomatoes, buy the plum ones instead of the chopped ones. It'll save you 10p for every single one you buy. I told you this is going to be so, you're probably thinking, man, I come to church for this? Good Lord, this is like, man, they don't even talk about Jesus. Whoa, no, just kidding. So anyway, if you were to buy these items, one every month, it's every year, for the whole year, 55 pounds for the whole year. Now, I don't know where you're at financially. I don't know your circumstances. And maybe you already shop this way. Okay? And maybe you've never thought about shopping this way. But essentially, I've just given you, if you shop this way and now you're going to shop this way, you've just paid yourself 150 pounds. You've just increased your income by 150 pounds. Now, wouldn't you like to go somewhere and increase your income? Yes. We want to make more money. Come on. There's nothing wrong with money. Because I want to be in control of it. I don't want somebody else to be in control of how I use my money. I should be in control of it. You should be the king, not some other dictator telling you how to use your money, okay? And God wants you to be free. Free. Learn habits that will, in time. Now, this is only 4 items. 4 basic items. Now, just imagine if you did it with cleaning products, if you did it with cuts of meat, if you bought things when they are on discount, if you put them in the freezer, there's ways that you can actually begin to cut. You can make substitutes. Butter is currently $1.99 for a 250-gram block of butter. That's the supermarket value brand of butter. Did you know you can use oil? My wife's non-dairy. You can use oil for a lot of things. Now, oil is a lot cheaper than buying butter. You can fry with oil. You can cook with oil. Oil is cheaper than butter. Most cakes can be substituted, things like that, with oil instead of butter. No, you just find practical ways to learn substitutes. This is like a home economics class, isn't it? It's just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Yeah. No, that's maybe some of you are already doing this. Maybe some of you would be too embarrassed to do this. And if you are, ask yourself why. Who's the king of my life? Who's controlling my life? If I'm doing this and this is so embarrassing, why am I being embarrassed? Who's embarrassing me? Who's looking down on me? Who am I letting have authority over my life to make me feel embarrassed? No, you can do it whether you afford it or not. You can do it just because it's practical. You want to make 150 pounds. You've just made 150 pounds this year. Maybe you're just doing it to be practical. The second question. So this is going to help us build margin in our lives. We've got to learn to stop buying wants and learn to find substitutes. But this is where it kind of affects the second question, which was not only, the first question, like how much can you save per month? You've just saved 150 pounds a year. How much can you save? But how much can you give away? See, when you create margin in your life, you create the capacity for generosity. You create capacity for generosity. You create capacity for generosity because you have margin in your life, and we need margin in our lives. Yeah, and some of us, Maybe you're just scraping by. You're just scraping by. All the more reason to get yourself on the Cap Money course, where someone will sit down with you. Trevor will work things through with you. We'll work on the budgets, work on stuff. Someone will work with you, help you figure out, get a handle on what's going in and out of the accounts, But I don't want to just scrape by, and I don't think you want to just scrape by either. I think all of us want to live in such a way that we can be free from the pressure and free to give away. Surely that's really where we all want to live, whether you're a follower of Jesus or not. That's like the way we want to live, And being so really practical, our family budget, this is not in my notes, so you guys are going to scribble around. So we spend £500 a month for a family of 6 for our groceries. £500 a month. We could spend more. We don't want to spend more, because if I spend more, I will reduce my generosity. My generosity, even though I could afford more, my generosity is more important. I need to have margin in my life, because being generous to others is more important than having what I want. And now that's the way we've chosen to live. It doesn't mean that's the way you have to live. I'm just saying, okay, I'm not just talking theory here. I'm talking real stuff. This is us. And if you want to sit down and say, how in the world do you feed a family of 6? You have almost four teenagers. How do you feed a family of 6 for £500 a month? We can have a really detailed conversation. You can see I kind of like this sort of stuff. I worked for the NatWest. I was a financial advisor for 11 years. I was talking about stocks and shares and overseas investments instead of cornflakes, but I don't mind talking about money. So we can dig into those kind of things if you want. But my heart to be generous is more important than my heart to be for myself. And margin, learning to live with margin sets you free. Learning to live with margin sets you free to be who you're supposed to be, and it also sets you free to be generous however you need to be generous. Now, you might not be a follower of Jesus, and that's okay. And I'm not actually telling you to give money to the church. I'm telling you to live a generous life, because being able to be generous is actually a lot of fun. What if there was a colleague at your office and you could actually just bless them with something because they're really struggling right now? How fun, how amazing to see their face light up, their tears start coming down their face because they had no idea that anyone was aware, and they had no idea that someone was just going to bless them for just bless them. You don't even have to be a Christian. I'm not telling you to give your money to the church. I'm telling you it's better to live free. God wants you to live free. Live generous lives. Live free lives. We want to create margin. Now, to do this, though, it takes discipline. And there's those words we don't like discipline and budget. Those are like words that we don't really like to do, but they're healthy. Knowing your budget and having discipline actually sets you free. When you drive your car and you know how to handle the car because you're disciplined enough to manage the car, it sets you free to enjoy the ride. You learn the rules of how it works. You give yourself discipline. There's lines in the middle so you don't go into the other side of the road, right? There's one-way signs so you don't go down that way. There's caution signs that say slow down, because if you don't slow down, you're going to go skirting straight over the roundabout, right? Discipline. Discipline sets you free. I don't mean discipline like punishment, okay? Discipline like learning and training and developing like a muscle, okay? Discipline sets you free. Now, you can't control that which is uncontrollable. Your gas bills, your fuel prices, we can't control those. Those are uncontrollables. We have to learn to be disciplined to control the controllables. These are controllables. You have control over what you spend on your food. That's a controllable. Totally controllable. You have control of what clothes you buy. Maybe you need to wait on buying some clothes at the moment. When you upgrade your car, maybe you just wait. You control the controllables. Don't let somebody else tell you how to do things. Learn to control the controllables. I don't know, maybe stop buying as many coffees when you I don't know, maybe stop buying lunch every day. I don't know if you do make lunch yourself or buy lunch. Anyway, there's lots of things you can learn to control. Once you dig into it, you can control lots of stuff. But it takes discipline to build a good habit. And once you build a habit, it helps you in life. And this whole month, especially in this time of financial crisis, we just want to encourage people to live. I want to encourage you to live life. Because the cost of living is this. If you're constantly skint, if you're struggling, if you're feeling under so much pressure, if you don't know how to breathe, that's not living. That's struggling, that's drowning, that's dying. That's not nice to be in that way. And we want to help, as a local church, we just want to help holistically, help you live. That's why Christopher last week talked about learning to not live with anxiety and stress and worry, living free from those things. And this whole month, we're going to just be talking about living free. And one way that we're practically caring for not only one another, but those in our community is through this money course. And maybe you've got a friend and you think, you know what, they would never go to a church. But you know what? They would actually like to be told that they could make 150 pounds this year. Maybe you could send them a link to this video. Maybe you could invite them to come and sit with you next week. Who do you know that would benefit from something that's helpful and hopeful? Maybe there's somebody in your life that you know would benefit from this. But maybe they don't want to come on their own. Can you go with them? Come with them. Help them. Go with them. Hey, I'll go with you. We'll do it together. 3 nights, 3 weeks. You might change their life. You might set them free. And the brilliant thing is as well, if through the exercise of working through the money course stuff, we find that someone's in a position where financially they're literally drowning. It's too much. You're dying. It's too much. We have a lifeline for you. We can help you in that position as well. We have specialists that will help you in the debt center that we can get you in touch with and work through some stuff with you to actually help. Because sometimes, and maybe some of us in the room, but certainly people in our community are beyond just being able to shop differently. They're so far down that they're drowning and they're dying. And we can help in that position as well. So really, really practical. Please get a leaflet. Trevor's here this morning. Speak to him about it. You can get some questions at the back if you want to know anything else about the Cap Money course. And when we finish in just a minute, you can go straight back there. You can sign up with your smartphone and everything. And I just want to close with this final thought. And you might not be a follower of Jesus. And I've loved the fact that you're here, that you've stuck around, you've leaned in. If you're watching this morning, if you're here in the room, thank you so much for being here. And more than anything, God is for you, and we want to see you live a free life. I want you to be free in life. More than helpful financial tips, we want you to be free, to live free. That he loves you so much that he would give his son for you. He loves you so much that he thought you were worth giving everything for. He loves you in spite of your questions, your offenses, your defenses, whatever you've got in place. He loves you, and he's for you. I have come that you might have life to the full. That's what he's here for. That's what we're passionate about. And most of us here today can tell you the stories of how our lives have been changed by this amazing person called Jesus, who's not just a theory, who's not a concept, something that changes the very way we live and care for one another. I'd love you to be challenged and consider following Jesus. It's something that we think is the best thing that you could do. And if you have any questions about that, I would love to speak to you at the end. But before then, let's just have a prayer, and then we'll finish off. God, thank you so much. We thank you, Father, that you're just incredibly practical. We thank you that your heart is to see us free. Thank you for that. And I just pray for everyone here this morning, God, that you would be with them. You would speak to them, whether they're watching or sitting here in the room, God, that you would just be with them. And for anybody who's got questions about you, I thank you that you're bigger than all our questions and you actually invite questions. Thank you so much for that. I just pray that you would be with everyone. Help us to learn to live lives with margin. Help us to breathe and live free. And help us to learn to live generous lives. Thank you for everything you are. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, have an amazing week, whatever you've got going on. If you have any questions about the money course, there's the table at the back, and Trevor will be there for you. You can ask him about anything with the money course. Yeah, perfect. Have a great week. Cheers.